Welcome to Active and Healthy with Gina, and it's lovely to be sharing another session of 10 minutes of Ageless Grace with you. This is this wonderful brain fitness program that whatever your age, whatever your level of health and fitness, you can do this. Because all you need to have is a chair, and you need to be seated on it. Try to have one that isn't going to wriggle. Preferably try and be barefoot or with socks, because it might be a little cool. But the great thing is you do not need to wear shoes because we're seated and because you want to feel that connection and groundedness with the earth. Okay, I'm ready to get going. So we're going to do some different exercises today. We're going to start with a great exercise that's known as front row orchestra. So we're going to pretend to play instruments. So are you ready? We're going to start with a set of drums. I've never played the drums. What's and why this is a brain health exercise program is because we're partly using our imagination. We have to think, how does a drum set work? Well, it's got one of those foot pedals and cymbals. So, foot, up and down, hand, as if we're doing a cymbal. We can be multitasking. This foot can be going, hands can be over here, as if we're playing the drums. And hit the cymbal up the top. Just imagine, you must have seen it on the TV at some stage. How about the other foot? Up and down, hands. I think you can be playing any instrument that you like. Let's keep this foot going. We're going to play the drums over here. It's good. Good for our wrists. Good for our imagination. We're trying to imagine how that would be. Okay, what about a keyboard? Have you played the piano in the past? I never took piano lessons, sadly. I can imagine what to play. Hands down one side. Hands down the other. Go right the way down the keyboard. What about strumming a guitar? Tap that at the same time. Strum, strum. And the other side. We're what's that word? Ambidextrous musicians. We can play on either side. Also works right, left brain. Keep that foot tapping. So imagine what it'd be like to strum a guitar on this side. What about tambourines? Bring them all the way up, all the way down, and to one side. You always got to nod your head, you know. People in the band always look like they're having a good time. You're allowed to smile. Very good. Front row orchestra that was. Okay, so the next one, power tools. We've had big storms here in Cape Town, so we're going to have to get the chainsaw out, and we've got to cut some of these logs and trees that fell down. So we're imagining that we've got a saw in our hands, and we're having to expend energy and power and leverage backwards and forwards. Come on, let's get these shoulders going. Holding on to that piece of wood. You know what I say? If we do it with one hand, go do it with the other. Huh. What's our coordination like on this side? So, we're going to tie a rope around the log, and we're going to try pulling it, because we've got to get it out of the way. Pull. Both hands, imagine. So you can be using your imagination and your body all at the same time. Let's tie a rope on this end. Pull it this way now. Pull to the side. Quite energetic. Shows what you can do in 10 minutes to use all different body parts. And let's pull this way. And we'll pull. And pull. Okay, we've got to clear some of these leaves out of the way. So let's get the broom, be sweeping them out of the way. Some people sweep away from themselves. Are you a person who sweeps away? Or you're one of those who likes to sweep things towards you. It can be either. Probably feels like the same thing, really. Very good. And we're going to scoop up, pick all those leaves up, put them in the wheelbarrow. One side. Got wheelbarrows on either side of us. Scoop up all the leaves. And the other side. Very good. How are we doing? Getting these weights going forth, back. That's lovely. And now we've just got to saw a little one. Here's a little one that just doesn't fit. We want to cut some small ones to fit in the fireplace. We're going to have to put them aside for a year because I know we're always supposed to leave our logs to mature, aren't we? Phew, that was quite hard. All right, so now legs together, hands on our knees and tap up to our shoulders. So this one is going to work on getting the heart rate going, just up and down. So we're going up to begin with. Then we're tapping knees and down. Tap, up, tap, down, tap, up. You've only got to go a small distance over the heart line to make the heart work a little harder and quicker and a little further up and down. And if you go with a sh on the way down, you're going to have to be breathing in on the way back up. Ooh. How's it going? Go at your speed, you can do it slow. Knees up, knees down. You don't have to go fast. You find your pace. It's nice for you. And we're going to push 2 out. Tap 2 on the knees and push 2 up. 1, 2, tap 2, 2, 2 out. 2 knees, 2 down. 1, 2, 1, 2. Down 2. Up 2. Down 2. 1, 2, up 2. Down 2. Feel that heart's working just a little harder? Just a little harder. Not too much, but just enough. 1, 2. Now, how about we open the legs a little wider and we just tap knees up, tap, and we just go across to the opposite knee. I've run out of music. Well, I think we can keep doing this when the next song starts. So we're just gonna do this as a continuation. Up, tap, opposite knee, tap, up. Last one this side, change sides. Up, opposite side, and tap these heels at the same time. It's our last song. We're almost at the end of that 10 minutes of Active and Healthy with Gina. Well done you. Almost made it. Okay, we're putting these legs together and taking them out with a little 1, 2 tap. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Just little movements. Both legs together, march them. And we're going to take one leg out to the side. Get these arms moving as well. Don't even have to get on the dance floor. You can do it in your chair. How about that? 10 minutes. And the other side. Keeping up at home? Almost there. And we're going to cross these arms and legs together. Good for coordination. Out. And cross the hands and the legs. And then we're going to see, once you've found the pace, can we do a few quicker? And in and out, cross, hands, legs. Phew, I hope this 10 minutes is finishing soon. Feels like a little bit of a workout, doesn't it? Back to these knees, walking up and down. And just kick these heels out again. Phew, how was that? 10 minutes, Active and Healthy with Gina, doing your Ageless Grace exercises. Lovely to have you sharing that with me. So, you know what you need to do next? Get a glass of water, stay hydrated, enjoy the break, and we'll be ready for our second session of the show. Just a moment. And welcome welcome back to Active and Healthy with Gina. I hope you enjoyed your exercises today. You've got your water, you've had a break. Well, we were on such a roll last week with Professor Tim Noakes, my very special guest, that we were just beginning to open up this wonderful, fascinating subject about insulin resistance. So he had much more to share. I think it's really important that you need to hear it and to have all of us be better educated. So, Professor Noakes, how wonderful to continue where we left off last week. And so, please share a little bit more what we were saying on insulin resistance.
Well, I'm sure many of the people who are listening have English parentage or background.
Right.
And they might like to know that in 1870, the English people were the healthiest they ever were.
Wow.
They've never been as healthy.
Well, as a Brit, that's interesting to know. But
It was. They had the same life expectancy as we have today without all the medications and so on.
Okay.
They died of infections, but they had very little cancer, very little heart disease, very little respiratory disease. Infections and trauma were the main causes of death, but they lived as long as we do today.
Okay.
And they did not go through what we go through, which is this progressive decline. Now, that's the example of the English, but there are many examples of populations that were incredibly healthy 100, 200 years ago. And then what happened? In came the sugar, the flour, the vegetable oils. Those are the three real killers that have damaged our health. And we replaced natural foods with these foods. And what happened in Britain in 1850 and 1870 was food was plentiful, but it was the food from the farms.
Yes.
And everyone could afford it. Even the poorest of the poor could afford that food. And they're incredibly healthy. So the point is that humans were once upon a time healthy.
Yeah.
And something's changed.
Yes.
So if you are ill, you've got poor health, you have to say, okay, so why was my great-great-great-great-grandparents healthy?
Yeah.
When they did not have all the medical support, they didn't have all the drugs that we're taking today, why were they healthy? And the answer is because nutrition is the driver of chronic ill health.
Yes.
And our medical model is that, no, it's an absence of a pharmacological product that makes you sick. And that is completely nonsensical. We are sick because of the foods we eat 3 or 4 times a day. And it's terribly important because you can improve your health at any stage of your life if you start eating good foods. And it doesn't matter if you're wheelchair bound or not.
Yeah.
We see people getting out of their wheelchairs when they start to eat proper foods instead of this processed junk that we are given. And unfortunately, the older you are, and if you are institutionalized, the food that you are getting is atrocious. It'll be full of carbohydrates, there won't be enough protein, and there won't be enough fat in it, particularly fat. Because if you want to keep your brain ticking over after 60, you better eat a lot of fat. And we don't, we do the opposite.
All right, so I think it's going to be good for the viewers to define what type of fats as they're getting older, because we know that the older community in this country, a lot of them are still very overweight, they're very inactive.
Yeah.
So we want to be encouraging them and, as you say, educating them to eat the right type of things and the right fats. Yeah. So what would you define as the right kind of fats we should be encouraging them to eat?
Firstly, carbohydrates make you fat, not fat. So everyone who's fat is eating too much carbohydrate.
Very
so that's
good.
The first thing.
So can we define the carbohydrates first for them? Because again, let's not take it that the viewers totally understand.
Sure. It's bread, grains, sugar, cereals, potato, rice. Those are the key, and the maize. And so it's mainly the cereals and grains that we don't want
to eat. All that white stuff.
All the white stuff, yeah. And then you ask which fats are healthy. Any fat that is natural in nature is perfect. It's the polyunsaturated refined vegetable oils that are toxic. The sunflower, the safflower, the canola oils. Those are highly toxic. You should not eat them. And we shouldn't be eating processed foods because they have what's called shortening, which is also use polyunsaturated fats in it, which are changed. The chemical composition is changed so they become unnatural. And most of the saturated fat intake that people have, and particularly older people, is in cakes and those sorts of things. Cakes and biscuits. You never eat a cake and you never eat biscuits. But I'll bet in most institutions, that's the main source of calories. And it's too horrible because it doesn't give you any nutrition.
And certainly potatoes and rice.
Yeah.
And we know among the Indian community that very often you can have your chapatis, and then they will have potatoes in a curry, and they'll have rice on the side. So you've got 3 forms of carbohydrate.
And no meat.
And very little
highly
meat.
Vegetarian diets. Yeah. So that diabetes is the highest incidence in the world is in the Indian communities, and particularly because they're such a meat-free diet. That's the problem.
So little protein.
Too little protein and too little fat, and far too much carbohydrate. So let's see, why does carbohydrate so toxic? Because humans have always been fat eaters. So let's take you back to England 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. What was the characteristic of Great Britain? It was covered with ice. So who was growing cereals and grains and tomatoes and vegetables? They weren't. They were eating mammoths. Well, not unfortunately, the mammoths had gone by then, but
right.
They were eating
meat,
fatty meat.
Yeah.
And I come from the north of England, and that's what my grandparents would have been raised on. And before them, they would have been on mammoths. And we used to have to eat the fat because that's all we could sustain us. And I think humans moved north because that's where the fattest animals were. So humans are designed to eat fat.
Right.
And what we've done is we've replaced the fat with sugar and carbohydrates. Now, if you're eating fat, you develop a state called insulin resistance. And you have to be, because you have to conserve all your glucose for your brain. And that's the condition of insulin resistance. So almost all populations that I've looked at, there are one or two that aren't. The majority are insulin resistant. And if you eat carbohydrates all the time, you over-secrete the hormone insulin. And insulin is a damaging hormone. It damages your entire body. And so every time you eat carbohydrates, if you're insulin resistant, you spike your insulin, and that insulin damages. It damages your arteries. It damages your brain. It does all this toxic stuff. And ultimately, you develop hypertension, diabetes, obesity, cancer, dementia. They're all the same disease.
Okay.
You've got to listen to that. People have to listen, because we treat you as if you've got 5 different diseases.
Right.
So we give you 5 different drugs, but they don't work because the cause is nutritional. So every time you go out to breakfast, go down to breakfast and you have your cereals and your healthy orange juice and you fill them up with sugar, that is raising your blood pressure, it's raising insulin, and then you take a pill that's meant to lower it. It can't work, you see. So, and then you get polypharmacy. So as you get older, you get more and more insulin resistant. Your blood pressure continues to rise. They put you on these dreadful drugs to control your cholesterol, when high cholesterol is what keeps us alive. At my age, the higher the cholesterol, the longer I live. The higher my cholesterol, the lower my risk of infections and of cancer. So I want a high cholesterol at my age.
Okay.
You don't want to treat it to lower it. If you lower it, you die early. And so that's all the evidence that we have.
And all too often it's one medication then combats another, isn't it? As we know with seniors, many of them get given far too many tablets, all of pills, all of which clash against each other.
And no one studies the interactions.
Yeah.
And you should not be on more than 3 medications. You shouldn't be on... The only medication you're allowed is metformin to keep your insulin down and your glucose down. That's very healthy. That's the medication I use. And you can obviously take supplements, but you don't. The other medications, you don't need them. If you're eating properly, you should be able to get everything normalized.
But it's a huge issue that we really want to encourage the viewers to know, that if you're on a lot of medication, it is something that you do need to be able to go and discuss with your doctor. Take him everything, because they actually can work it out and will realize that there are different things that clash against each other.
And giving you an example, that we talked about a high cholesterol at our age is beneficial. And my great friend Zoe Harcombe, who was part of my expert witnesses in my trial, her mother was put on a statin at the age of 90 to prevent premature heart disease. Hold at 90, premature heart disease? It just doesn't make sense.
And as we know, I think I was asking you this, but everything I get to see, and my understanding is that the huge pharmacological companies are the ones who fund our medical schools today. So if the people who are putting the money into the medical schools are teaching our doctors to prescribe drugs, they're not teaching how to keep people healthy in the first place. They're coming already from, after the horse has bolted, that they've got to help get people right, which seems so wrong.
Well, I'm glad to say that modern medicine, or current conventional allopathic medicine, has about 10 years to go. And then there's going to be 2 parallel forms of medicine. There's going to be the conventional allopathic drug-driven model, which is taught at the medical schools, and there's the other one that works, that is nutritionally based, and it looks at the whole totality of what makes you healthy. And people are going to choose, and people are increasingly choose this model, and these people will lose their patients, and they won't have anyone to treat. And that's what I tell the young doctors, and I tell the profession when I get a chance. You're training people in a way that's going to be completely redundant in 10 years' time. They're going to be completely without a job because you're not teaching them to see what's happening. The future of medicine is being determined by Silicon Valley. That is where it's being decided.
Right.
Because you in future will have a cell phone that can make diagnoses. You don't have to go to the doctor. The cell phone will tell you what the problem is. And if you can't get it from the cell phone, you go on Google.
As we know, people do all too often. The moment they've got a symptom, they're going out and checking it.
But you say that prejudicially. They're probably going to get better advice on Google than they would from their doctor.
Okay.
So that you know there is a
some good advice out there. So,
I mean, don't
misjudge it.
Don't misjudge it. Like people don't go on Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter is the most important way of getting knowledge. It's unbelievable.
Do you tweet regularly?
I've tweeted 35,000, and I have close to.
Okay, that's a lot.
And I have close to 95,000 followers.
Wow.
So I'm one of the most followed scientists in the world.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's worth doing. So if you're interested in that, follow Professor Noakes. I will have to do the same.
And the reason I do it is because I communicate information.
Right.
I mean, every day, if there's an important finding, important study out there, I will know it today.
Wonderful.
My colleagues will know it. When I spoke to those cardiologists we were talking about, I presented a paper that none of them had seen. It was in Circulation, which is their journal. They all tell me, you don't read this. Well, hold it, I knew.
Right.
And I could tell them the stuff that this paper destroyed their whole basis for their practice. So the social media is the future of education. And the bricks and mortar universities are in real trouble. They're going to be replaced by learning via the internet. I do agree that you'd love people to get together, young people, and communicate and so on, but the future is, unfortunately, that's only going to be part of education.
I'm sure that will. Now, we haven't touched much on exercise,
Yes.
the importance of exercise for maintaining healthy aging and the brain. So what would you share with a few quick tips on
You want to keep your muscle mass, and that's key, so that your muscle mass will get decrease, and as your muscle mass decreases, you get weaker and slower, and therefore you become less mobile and probably more likely for falls, because that's what you have to prevent.
It's a big issue, yes.
So you need to be active, but you also need to keep some strength going.
So some strength training is going to be important.
Some strength training is very important, and mobility and mobility and balance. Those are all things which you can work on.
Yeah, so those are some key issues that we do with Ageless Grace, and we cover them in our 10 minutes of exercise that we do at the very, very beginning. So there we are. You've heard it from Professor Noakes, that you need to be able to stay active, stay healthy, make informed decisions, and feel free to get onto the Noakes Foundation website. You can find out more about the Noakes Foundation. You can find out more about Eating Better in South Africa. Wonderful program to be able to support. And a huge thank you once again, Professor Noakes, for your time with us at Dean TV, Active and Healthy with Gina, sharing some of your wonderful information. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing for the population.
I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week, back for Active and Healthy with Gina.